Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all had a good coffee and are ready to hear back from the discussions that we had. Are you ready to hear more? What you missed out, which groups you were not able to attend, and what were the key points that were discussed in those groups? So in this session, we are going to first hear back from the rapporteurs from the 4 groups that were talking about water scarcity. They were also talking about floods and also transboundary water management. And also we'll hear back from our online group what they discussed about. So can I invite Samyang to let us know what were the key points that they discussed under the water scarcity group?
So I just try to wrap up everything. So the key point that maybe talk around the involvement of the local knowledge, local participation, and also involved with the local policy maker into all. And so the idea of the group, they discuss about the way strategic to address the water scarcity, and also how we can GEDSI integration into all the things. So the key idea that they suggest that should integrate GEDSI into all policy frameworks of all policy and law and other sector, and also the key point, interesting point is building trust, because of the challenge is the time frames of the project. So the things that because when they're doing a project, the timeline is short. So the local people, they not really try to share their own accurate data. So it's about the researcher and to try to building trust with the local and also the authority. And the interesting point also the involved with investment, investor, because one key factor they discuss about how Singapore can build recycle the water into a clean water and also sell to other country. Why country in Southeast like Cambodia, Laos, and other country could not do it? Why? So, and also the challenge still on the trust building, local voice, accurate data. So the last way forward, they talk about the innovation by using technologies like the example of the rain ape monitoring and also the water experiment case in Vietnam. And also, I think the last but not the conclusion is there is no one solution fit all, I think. And the key word of the group is integration, I think. That's all.
Thanks so much, Samyang. Also, Albert was facilitating the room. Do you have anything to add to what Samyang already mentioned? I don't see he's in the room. Okay. Do you have anything to add, Albert? No? All good? All right. Okay. Then I'll go on and invite our second rapporteur, which is Kaisu, if she can let us know what were the key points of discussions in the group which we're talking about floods. If you can share 3 to 4 points with us.
We focus on 3 questions. The first one is any recent advancement in flood risk mapping and early warning systems contributing to improve flood preparedness? Sorry, the first one is the second one. So I won't read out to you everything we discussed. I would just point out what has really been significant is that the use of AI and machine learning technology in flood risk mapping models, but there is also the gap of how much reliable it is, like what is the accuracy of the data behind this. And the other highlights that come up of the discussion was citizen science, like involvement of citizens and also their participations, especially in data collection and also monitoring of like flood-prone areas in their surrounding, things like that. And the third thing is I really appreciate traditional knowledge because instead of going to an area without knowing their local context, and they have been maybe adapting on their own these to floods, and we should really make use of this traditional knowledge and also combine with innovations for improving or enhancing these traditional ways. And the second question is around, what is it? Best practices that best practices for flood preparedness and mitigation. It's the most important point here that our participant mentioned is that to really localize and also to understand local context. Who are the people living there? What is their terrain? And what has been the history of hydrological conditions and climate? And based on that, we should consider like knowledge-based adaptations, which is more cost-effective than traditional adaptation. And one thing is also in emergency responses, we should consider social and also gender-based, such as elderly person with disabilities, to be responsive to social inclusion. And the third one was, what are the policy options that show promises in managing floodplains? So we didn't have much time around to discuss this one, but the important one that will come out is that when we consider policy options, that should really be like not just human-centered, but also we need to change our thinking around to center nature and ecosystem services that we receive from the nature and consider nature-based solutions and ecosystem services while making policies, and also the importance of quality data and evidence that will inform policy making for flood mitigation. That's the highlight from our group, but I don't know if anyone wants to add anything.
Anything from you, Nyan? No? Thanks so much, Kaisu. And it's been interesting to hear that we want to move away from the business as usual solutions. We want to look at solutions within the nature through ecosystem services enhancement, nature-based solutions, use of AI, as this is a generation of AI. So thank you very much. And moving on from there, can I invite Sarawang Tim to please present the discussions from the transboundary interactions within water systems group. Tim, can you also restrict yourself to 4 key points?
I see. Thank you so much. I'm representing the team that discussed on transboundary interaction with water system. We actually have a very dynamic discussion. So just in case my recap missed some point, my team please feel free to jump in and share more from your perspective. So from the discussion, we actually found out that when it comes to transboundary issues, it's not just about country to country, it also impacts at the individual level, household and community level. And this is the need to emphasize the multi-stakeholder engagement and negotiation to engage the most marginalized and vulnerable community and the decision-making and policy formulation so that the community can actually have voice in the transboundary water governance when it comes to their impact, because people have different needs, different impact, and this is something that we actually need to consider about that when it comes to the transboundary issues, not just about country to country anymore. And additionally, the equity to governance should be defined in the different scope. It should be within the country and within the regional level, which implementing that when it comes to transboundary issue, we also need to consider about the equity government to thinking about the accountability and transparency. For example, how do we ensure to that the community within the country, that the community get the timely information about the impact of the transboundary issue. And when it comes to the regional issue, the regional to regional, what does it mean when it comes to a transboundary issue like collaboration and information? And the last point is the discussion. We also see the MRC role play the important role to strengthen the discussion and collaboration to identify the common issue and to formulate the policy that fit to the interest of the the country that along the Mekong region, so that we actually can think about the benefit sharing and common interest when it comes to policy formulation. In addition, we also are thinking that when it comes to MRC, we also discussing among our team, like how can we help MRC to better or to support MRC in terms of like being transparently accountable in terms of data sharing, information sharing, and to make an inclusive policy formulation to address the trend boundary issue. Yeah, that is all for my team.
Thank you so much, Tim. And that's provoking our, follow-up discussions with our panelists as well to ask them what do they see as the way forward? How do we go from here? Yes, these are the challenges we need: more accountability, more transparency, and more, sort of equitable benefit sharing when it comes to at least the Mekong water resources. So how do we ensure that? And we would hear more from our panelists after we hear from Ronan on how the discussions went with the online group. So can you let us know what was the topic that the participants chose and 4 key points, please?
Yes, thank you, Ridi. So our group, we facilitated the online session, which is a small group, and it's great because we have a very integrated, inclusive discussion among ourselves. In our session, we had to cover all the themes that was highlighted just now. So in water scarcity, floods, and transboundary issues. I'll report back what was covered. We didn't get over every questions, but for water scarcity, what we learned from our participant from Vietnam is that the challenges that they are facing right now has mostly been mainly on the flash floods that had caused inland, that has go into their inland and causing effects to their agriculture. So that was the challenges that the communities kept facing. And in terms of strategy, how the case in Vietnam has adapted is that the people there, they've been living using a strategy to adapt with the floods, with the flash floods, and they're trying to be more familiar with the situation. And like Kai Su has mentioned, the participant from Vietnam also refers back to the traditional way of handling with a flood situation by using the practices of harvesting rain and also recycling the water to harvest their agriculture. So these has been the best practice that were shared by our participant. And LMC, which Ms. Tong Yuchen has been in our session, shared that the basic rights of human is the government in China is very much very important on this, and they've been providing a lot of funding to provide safety training and capacity building for their partners. And so these have been the most promising strategies that has been so far to overcome the situation with the water scarcity. Also, in terms of, I think I'm covering both the water scarcity and flood topic in both at the same time. Regarding an interesting point that was shared from our participant is that in terms of living with flood, he mentioned that now the situation is becoming more and more challenging as the region right now is the water flow or the river flow is greatly changed over time. So predictability is more challenged, and so it's hard to predict the water flow or there's flood delay. He shared an interesting case in the Netherlands that they have been using the strategy to involve the room for the river, which this project, he said that it provides more, suggested to remove more rooms in the water plains to allow the river to flow and give them the river more space to spread out in the floodplain. This is, I think, similar to the Monkey Cheek project in Thailand, if you're familiar. But our facilitator, Dr. Thanapon, also said that there's a problem with land ownership. So if we're going to do allowing more floodplains or river more space, that's going to also be challenged with land ownership as well. Last point on the transboundary issue, I think you've heard this morning our LMC partner has shared a very good example of what strategies can the government or our government improved on this is they shared a very good example that their mechanism between the 6 countries has allowed the high-level decision makers to exchange views, and their support on joint study with the MRC is also one of the points that has helped them to exchange on not just knowledge sharing, but real situation and understanding each other's issue through a scientifically informed discussion. So that has been one of the cases that LMC participant who joined the session has shared. So these are the highlights of the three themes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ronan. All right, so I think the stage is set for our panelists to react to what have been the discussions. They will be reflecting to most of the discussions that have happened and if there are any gaps that they think were not talked about as well. So for this session, we have Tong, engineer from Lancang-Mekong Corporation WaterCentre, joining us online. Also, we have Dwight, Jason, Ronan, Senior Program Manager, DFAT, Australian Embassy in Thailand, to please be on the dais. Also, Dr. Phoummixay, from Department of Environmental Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, National University of Laos. Can you please join us on the stage? Next, we have Karen from International WaterCentre Alumni Network, and also she is the SUMERNET-MTT GEDSI advisor. We also have Dr. Thanh, who's currently a lecturer with Canto University and an MTT fellow. Lastly, we have Ms. Oulavanh from Faculty of Environmental Sciences, National University of Law, joining us for this panel discussion. Can I invite all of you to please be on the stage and we can get started with the discussion? Can we have a big round of applause for our panelists? Thank you so much, and let's get started. First, I would like to invite Dr. Tong Yan-Chen to react to reflect on what has been discussed already. So there were questions about how do you think like regional agencies, regional bodies can ensure more transparency, more accountability in terms of addressing water insecurity within Mekong, and also what do you think is the key gap still that we have not addressed when it comes to water scarcity, and what can be done there? Over to you, Dr. Tong. We cannot hear you. Are you muted?
Yeah.
Can you please unmute?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And now it's okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we had just had a good discussion online regarding all the 3 topics. And I have here that the colleagues from SEI had just give us a pretty comprehensive conclusion regarding what we had discussion. And regarding the water scarcity, I totally agree that the integration principle to address this issue. Here, I just want to share my reflect on this issue for some supplement. In my point of view, generally speaking, I think there are 2 main reasons for water scarcity. One is inadequate water quantity, and the other is poor water quality. So regarding the water quantity, first of all, we all know that the climate is changing. It resulted in less rainfall, which is driving the whole basin into a more drier situation. And so it is very important that we use some climate resilient solutions to to promote the water access for human beings. For example, in some LMC supporting project, we used solar power techniques for the water supply project. And also I noticed that farmers and researchers in Thailand and China are using the alternate wetting and drying irrigation for rice cultivation, which can reduce carbon emission, save water, and improve resistance to drought. And the second level regarding the water quantity is that there is still gap remains between the capacity for water supply and the demand of the water utilization in the basin, especially in rural areas where people may rely on wells, water tanks, or even natural water bodies, which is decentralized water source, and it is not very stable. It can be easily affected by seasonal floods and droughts. So it is still in need that we give the local communities more stable water resource. And regarding the water quality, although this may not be very apparent, but it is an emerging problem which we should pay attention to. It is reported that in some parts of the region, the arsenic concentrations in groundwater is too high, which may affect people's health. And also, water pollution is emerging due to industry and agriculture development. So it is also imperative to strengthen the monitoring of water quality and wastewater treatment. All in all, it is not a very easy task to address water scarcity. It is related to good planning, inclusive funding, strict regulation, and sustainable operation. It involves joint efforts from the government, researchers, technical persons, enterprises, and local communities, and also should be managed according to local conditions. And through all this process, the concept of integrated water resources management should always be implemented. So that's for all from my point of view regarding addressing water scarcity within this region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tong. And it's been good to hear that there are efforts already in place to address water scarcity, and also we can be more adaptive and more smart in the way we're using what is already available. Moving on from there, I feel there's a question about, Mekong is a shared resource, right? So how do you think we can better manage this resource? What are the possible pathways that we have not yet explored in terms of managing these transboundary water resources? And that could be, a way forward for organizations like LMC, MRC, what they can take, as their approach moving on from here. I would throw that question to you, Dwight, if you can respond to that.
Yes, okay. Well, thank you for that question. Actually, I want to answer that with 3 reflection points based from the discussion earlier this afternoon, this morning, and yesterday. I think everyone had really good ideas in terms of how do we really. One of the things, or one of the questions that has been asked since yesterday was how do we bridge knowledge to policy? I think we've already established the fact that there are still existing gaps, but how do we really manage to do that? And I think the experience of SUMERNET and the contribution of, for example, of Mekong think tanks is very important because we try to bridge that gap through inclusive knowledge co-production. But actually, I wanted to step back again. What do we mean actually by inclusive knowledge co-production. So last night when I was thinking about this, one of the things that came into my mind was doing research with the people, doing research by the people, and doing research for the people. If we have that in mind early on, the process of developing the concepts for our projects, we would be able to really take into account or integrate the views of the people that we work with, policymakers. Yesterday, there were questions about there's a different language that policymakers speak. There's a different language for researchers. But actually, in reality, when you have all these stakeholders in mind at the start of the project, you wouldn't have that issue of difference in language. So I think that's my first reflection. My second reflection would be a lot of here today are researchers, and there was a question earlier about the use of feature stories, the use of documentaries in communicating their research. I think it's important for us, especially for the researchers here, to take note that research not communicated is research not done. So we have to make sure that all of our results are well communicated to the community that we work with. And we shouldn't just think of traditional platforms like TV, radio, or social media. There are a lot of existing mechanisms that we have in the region. For example, community theater, storytelling, dance, songs. These are all cultural assets that we have already, especially here in the Mekong region. For example, in Myanmar, they have the village Pue, where they tell the stories about the lived experiences of the people in the community. So it's important to make use of this. I'm sure for the researchers in the room, they're more focused about, okay, let's do a research and let's publish it in a high-impact journal. But that's not the end goal, I think. The end goal of a research is actually communicating those that you develop all throughout the process, communicating it to the community, communicating it to the policymakers, making sure that your policy recommendations have actionable actions, basically. My last point, I'm very sorry, and I'm sure Karen will talk more about this. And the last, and the two groups a while ago pointed out about social inclusion, gender equality, and disability equity. When we mean equality, it doesn't mean identical lived experience. When we say that men and women are equal, it doesn't mean that they have identical experiences. Equality, I think, means that the differences in the lived experience of women, men, people people along within the gender spectrum, or people with different sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, the differences in their lived experience does not translate to different levels of access and agencies to the benefits and opportunities in our society. So I wanted to highlight that Australia, coming from DFAT, we're really intent on promoting social inclusion in most of our work, primarily because Australia hosts one of the longest continuing cultures with our First Nation communities in Australia. So it's very important to listen to the voices of Indigenous communities. It's very important to listen to the voices of the disabled and abled communities, because all of us have different lived experience. So in all of our initiatives, they have to be taken into account. So those are just my three reflection points.
Thank you so much, Dwight. Now you've set the stage for discussions to happen further. So I would deflect this to Karen. So we've been hearing for the past 3 days the words around inclusion. We are talking about equality. We're talking about equity. We're talking about, equitable benefit sharing. I think you are someone who can tell us how to do that. We are all researchers, and I guess the majority of us don't know how to do that. How do you think we can make that happen in the region specifically?
I want to start by saying thank you to everybody who shared your stories over the last few days. They've been truly inspiring. There's so much that is happening in the region. So I just thank you for that. I'd like to start with talking about transformational GEDSI approaches and outcomes. We think a lot about what is this transformational possibility that we have? Well, it's on a spectrum. You start with, maybe a GEDSI blind approach where you're not even considering marginalization, and then you move to becoming GEDSI aware, and then you become transformational. Great. You hear this word transformational, you say this is fantastic, but what are you really talking about? Because it's kind of arbitrary, right? Well, it's about putting the most intersectionally marginalized person at the center of our projects and of our research. We can say that, but it's also very difficult to do. It's about recognizing the dominant power structures that drive the systems that we're looking to change or disrupt even. And we dance around them a lot of times, but we don't really consider how these power structures are creating winners and losers around us. And fundamentally, I'd like everybody to consider that institutions are made of individuals, and each of us brings our own history, our own way of seeing and thinking, and our own role to play in how we shape the future. So we each have our own lived experiences that we're bringing into our projects, along with the people that we're working with. I would also really like to talk about this quote-unquote gap between research and policy, researchers and policymakers, which has come up quite a bit, and share some different perspectives, I hope, with you that maybe open up different kinds of thinking. So we're all working to address sustainability challenges for the most part, but we operate with different cognitive frameworks. We think differently. We have these different disciplines that we're coming from that sort of define how we see the world that we live in. And these will affect how we prioritize. It will affect how we consider evidence. It will affect how we determine whether or not this evidence is credible or not. We also operate in different time cycles. I think everybody's very familiar with, we talked already earlier today, I think it was Aaron was talking about the fractured cycles of politics and politicians. And it's messy. And we also have our research cycles, which are very distinct in a sense, operating within the kind of project timeframes that we have. And these two cycles don't always intersect or interlink. And it's important to kind of think, well, where do they intersect and interlink? And how can we create synergies around that? As researchers, we're also trained to use a certain kind of language and to maintain neutrality. Am I right? Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about that. I'd like to fundamentally challenge neutrality. We live in a difficult moment, and it's accelerating. We're talking about crises. You can't stay neutral. We have to work within our normative frameworks in a way that still respects the credibility of our research, but acknowledges these crazy challenges that we're facing, because it's not getting any easier. And we can't be here 20 years from now having these same conversations. So think about how, although we don't consider ourselves activists or advocates of anything, we do operate in this really complex and fast-moving human ecological space. We have ethics. We make judgments. And if we didn't, we would just leave these problems to AI, wouldn't we? Couple more last points.
Can you just make one closing point, Karen,
One
please?
closing point.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. I think we need to work with power differently. I think we need to understand power a little bit differently. Just considering all the other points that I've said, let's talk about the power structures that are in place, and let's explicitly acknowledge them and try and figure out, where are the winners and losers coming from? What's going on with geopolitics? Because it keeps coming up, but we keep dancing around it, but let's kind of start to unpack that a little bit more. And let's also consider at a much smaller scale what's happening individually, because a lot of us are facing some pretty severe security threats to our lives in a lot of cases. And we've had some individual discussions about this and how to bring this into our work as well. So understand the power of our words, our language, our discourses, and how this reflects our values. And from a GEDSI perspective, from equity and inclusion, also consider how we use different terms. And I just want to kind of call out the difference between stakeholder and actor, because there's a big difference there. So think about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. Again, I think the key point that you made there was, in whatever we are doing, there's someone who's losing something, right? It's at the cost of someone. So how do we ensure that, you know, we don't do that much harm, at least if we are, in a way, trying to, do no harm. Yes, exactly. So when we are moving towards that, I think, Ajahn Oulavanh, you are working with the communities. They are actually many a times at the receiving end of that loss, right? So how do you think we can manage that better through our research, through how our research is being communicated to policy? How can we give those communities some alternative solutions? How can we provide for them that they are not harmed in the way that we are approaching bigger issues and bigger challenges? Over to you. If you can take 2 minutes and around 3 points.
Okay, thank you very much. I will try to say only the keywords then.
Please.
Okay, actually, I have been joining a lot of discussion from previous researchers, policies makers, that I have learned a lot from all of you as well. So to share this experience from the communities research that I have been involved in order to ensure the water access and the safeguard rights for the local communities. The first thing what I have been taking into the account and consider as the importance is like to involve the local communities into the research from the beginning and try to recognize them and acknowledge them as the local researchers. Farmers, they never heard about the research and they never think that they can be a research. But when we are giving them a name of the local researchers, they feel like very confident and very inspire them to work with us. And we try to motivate them to be local researchers because we learn from them as well. So, and also taking into the understand the policies in order to scale up the common needs from bottom to the upper level. That's most important. So trying to engage with the local authorities, and the local authorities can be the one who can scale up the issues to be an upper level. At least if not from the research, that can be from the local authorities. And the last point that I want to mention that try to define or understand the GEDSI, because we are talking about GEDSI, but we have to make sure that local communities or local authorities, they understand like with us. So how they can define and identify the members of the communities themselves to be a GEDSI into the consideration of any involvement at the communities. So we make sure that we understand and they should understand and aware like us. And one more point that to ensure that technology is important, as we are mentioned, innovation, technology, and or whatever. But we have to aware that traditional techniques or skill also need to be taken into our consideration in terms of the developments, especially in the poverty context like Laos. We still need the nature-based solutions as the best solutions for the communities. Yeah, I want to highlight that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Oulavanh. Thank you so much. And from here, I think another key point to take is that we are not supposed to leave anyone behind when we are designing actions or we are trying to bring out new research and then, moving towards policy impact and change. So that would be the key. But yes, you raised a right point around innovations. There are some facts that now we are living with, that floods would happen, right? Water scarcity will happen because the climate is changing and, the way we are managing our resources is still kind of a mismanagement that we are doing. So I think I would ask Ajahn Phoummixay, what do you think could be the innovations or solutions that we can actually use and maximize in terms of addressing these risks? 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Yeah, as we have seen yesterday, we have seen many things in terms of innovation. In case of the Cambodia, but in Cambodia is that for traditional protected, in terms of the flood protection, that is quite good experience, because for local community we don't need too high technology in terms of AI or in terms of the high technology, but in some case we can use in terms of the early warning system to warn them, to let them know in case of the flood, when they will be flood or where they should be located in that particular area is already safe for them. I would like to highlight that it depends on location. For instance, if we granted the location that is very far from us in rural area, we cannot use early warning system, because what I want to say, it should be local material, low cost and eco-friendly with the local people. In other thing, I would like to mention, local knowledge is very important. They know how to use, they understand what it happened. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you so much,
Enough?
Ajahn. Yes, and I think most of us agree that local solutions could be the answer to most of the problems, but we need to somehow, solve that question of how to upscale that, how to be more aware about that, how to include that within our knowledge systems, because we are not much aware about these solutions that exist already. Moving on from there, I think I would now move to Dr. Thanh. We've heard about water a lot, but the challenges that we are facing are across sectors as well, right? So how do you think that we can, somehow take a nexus approach in the region to bridge the knowledge gaps and then make policy impacts?
Yeah, thank you, Rudy. I will talk shortly. 3 points. The first one is about the nexus approach. Because actually you may know about that the nexus is to investigate the internal connection between the component. But I believe that in the Mekong region, water is the main component. And actually that reason why you can find somewhere else during the workshop like water, energy and climate nexus. But we choose in the nexus like that, for example, is we have 3 components: water, energy and climate. But actually it depends on the region. The component we will select it is depend on the importance of each component. Maybe in other region we have like food, land use, ecosystem, maybe recently greenhouse gas emission. We have like diversified component or nexus, but like it's the interaction between the components. So we should like limit a number of the component, like 2, 3, 4, not so all of them. That's the one of the limitation that we need to like eliminate the component that you think that is not important in your analysis. And the first one. The second one is about challenges. She mentioned about uncertainty. Actually, uncertainty comes from different sources, like climate change or human intervention, like you build in something. But for example, in the Mekong data, Mekong River, or Mekong region, I believe that the human intervention is more. The impact of human intervention is more like bigger than climate change, and it's immediately you can see the consequence of the action. So, and I found that it's a good way that if we can deal with the uncertainty, we can convince the policy that how to make a policy based on the scientific result. This is one way, because the common way, the policy maker asks the researcher, like, are you sure that the result is reliable? That's the most common question. Yeah, I believe that. The third point, I get back to the Aaron question, how the Mekong resources can be used. But I need to identify the resources, definition. Maybe this resources or disaster. For example, in the Vietnamese Mekong Delta in my area, saltwater intrusion in the past around the last 2 decades is it a disaster? Because it's damaged the rice crop and freshwater production. It's a disaster at that time. But right now, is it like a resource? Because the people in the coastal area, they can use the salt water to do some like stream-based cropping system. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
my point.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Dr. Thanh. So it's more about looking at challenges and turning them into opportunities. That's what I take away from your response. Can I open to the audience if you have any reflections, any thoughts that you think, any points that we have missed out, have not been discussed yet, or any questions that you want to raise to our panelists? Anyone? Okay, Niall.
Thank you, and thanks for interesting discussion so far. And I just wanted to, kind of got 3 points here, but just maybe start with the first one or two. But maybe we Karen's talk about research and our role to go beyond just doing the research, but maybe there's an issue about remaining impartial and focusing on evidence-based science and avoiding the passion that goes behind it, because we can, and we are passionate human beings, and we want to see the right things, but how easy is it to let that bias your research to get what you want coming out of it? So just an element of caution. And you know, for an organization like SEI, for example, we're on the fence. We're not supposed to be making decisions one way or the other. Sometimes it's very frustrating. You want to scream, but you want to keep the evidence-based science, so your credibility is based on that. So it is a question of how, you know, how we should work within SUMERNET and within MTT to do this, because this is what I see is the whole point of the link between SUMERNET and MTT now, is that we have the researchers who can do that impartial, non-biased research and link it to then better policymakers to drive the agenda. And we've got to try and push that hard if we can. So maybe a second point I was listening to is that when we say do no harm and leave no one behind and so forth, in reality, we're going to have to make decisions that are going to probably support some people more than others. And we can't slow down those decisions. We have to try and make them and move forward, while at the same time reflecting back at how we can pull other people along behind that. So I want to make sure that I get worried that we're all trying to be perfect. And we know what perfect does to everybody. It just slows down everything. And I think we have to make sure that, you know, there's an element of bringing everybody forward, doing no harm for sure, and making decisions that don't specifically do harm to anybody else, but helps others move forward and then come back and help build that up again. And then just the last point I wanted to bring up is the local solutions. Yes, we need to integrate local knowledge. We need to understand systems. But there was a quote that somebody said on the radio years ago in relation to water resources. I think it was Australian as well, but he was saying that, you know, we can't look to history anymore to teach us about how we solve the problems, because the context is so very, very different, whether it's population density, the consumption patterns, everything else. So if we're looking at local solutions, looking back to the way it was and we can do this or do that, we've got to be very careful, because we're in a very different world today. And I think that was mentioned earlier as well. So we've got to always look forward to find the solutions. Looking backwards anymore is not getting us to where we want to be. And this business as usual has to change. We're just not moving forward. So just a few reflections on what you're saying. Thank you.
Thanks, Niall. Pretty good points raised there, that we have to look ahead. Let's move forward from where we are. Any other reflections anyone wants to add from the room or anyone online? Do we have any questions online? No. Anyone from the room? Okay, Boripat.
Hi, I'm Boripat. I have a question, but I don't know if it's going to make much sense, so please bear with me. In terms of the water-related science policy gap in the Mekong region that we've been talking about, comparing this to the water-related science policy gap in Western countries, I'm wondering if there are any aspects or examples where the Mekong's gap is actually less narrow than our Western counterparts. Or in other words, are there any instances where the Mekong might be doing a better job in bridging the water-related science policy gap than the global north? Anyone can respond.
Anyone? Karen, Dwight. Please go ahead.
I want to quickly respond to the neutrality issue because I'm really excited about things like sustainability science and even knowledge co-production, which is, I'm not saying that we should let our passions drive us, but like there's these new openings that are happening that's creating a different way of engaging with this space that I think is really exciting and almost necessary because yeah, credibility is, and your evidence is key. I mean, that's what moves anything forward. But there's something happening over the last couple of years I think is really exciting that we can explore a little bit more. When we use terms like knowledge co-production or co-creation or co-design, which has been used a lot, I think there's some really interesting nuances that we could potentially explore to see how do we make that our own in the region. So yeah, yes, completely, yep. And then just really briefly to Borapat's, I think the whole approach with boundary partners here in the region is pretty unique. I've seen the engagement of boundary partners in multiple countries happening in a way that I am not seeing in the West. And I can tell you in France, it's like you can talk to your mayor and it kind of stops there, right? But here, there's this chain of governance that seems to be really engaged through the projects. And I think, I mean, your case yesterday was a great illustration as well as the first case in Thailand that was presented.
Anybody else from the panel wants to add?
Actually, I just want to add to what Karen said. Actually, the examples yesterday were actually perfect examples of how Mekong is doing it right. I think in the Asian context, the social capital is so high that everyone is really invested in solving solutions that are affecting their everyday lives. So this is quite different from the Western experience where, and also in Asia, you know, everyone is a relative. Everyone is a neighbor, you know. What happens in the next village affects what's happening to me. So there's a really strong bond between communities and villages. So that's why I think sometimes when we're saying that the solution is already in the communities, that's actually quite true. Sometimes what they're doing in the other village, we're not doing it in our village. So maybe we should learn from them. And you know, the role of researchers and policymakers is just to look into what's in here and then applying it in our own context. So yeah, and the examples yesterday, the one in Banpai in Mahasarakam was really good. Professor Oulavang's example was also really good. So having that strong connection within the community is really important. And sorry, last one. Earlier this morning, there was one who said that, I think it was Dr. Wijan, who was saying that before he was a researcher, and then he became a decision maker, and now he's part of a nonprofit organization. So in our region, the delineation between the roles are sometimes overlapping. So sometimes I play the hat of a researcher, sometimes I play a hat of a decision maker. So, yeah.
Perfect, thank you so much. And what I'm also taking away from this, okay, Oulavanh, you have something to add, please go ahead.
I just want to have a very short highlight that according to this, we have to think about our Asia culture, that how we can harmonize, how we can talk together in the good way, and between even the policymaker or researchers and communities. And I think bringing the culture or religious into our research in the good sense, it could help as well. And because my project size, they are ethnic minority, I even cannot communicate with them. But to use the local translators, using the explanation, even the religious of them is different. But in our research, we can understand and minimize the understanding and make common understanding together and resolve the problem together.
All right, that's Phoummixay. Let's be really quick.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
1 second.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just would like to share some idea in terms of the gaps. So first thing we need to see in the above, interconnection of the government, it should be the same direction, the same picture. After that, we can look down to see us, look back and see the culture of each country that they want. Because in terms of the GEDSI, in terms of the local community, they have different culture, different understanding. Before we translate the finding of our research to be the policy, foreign policy will be the action. This is very important point. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ajahn Phoummixay, and thank you to all the panelists to get us going about, there are a lot of good things out there that we can use, we can capitalize on those to actually bridge the gaps within research and policy. So the picture is not that grim. We have some positive points to take and move ahead from where we are. So as we are closing in on time, I would like to thank all the panelists for such an amazing session and sharing their thoughts and ideas on where we are headed and how we can reach where we want to be. So thank you so much for an engaging session.
Thank you all for that enriching conversation that we had. We've almost come to the close of today's sessions, and I have the difficult role of trying to sift through all of the conversations and give some quick closing messages of what is coming across from the conversations that we've had so far. And clearly there are 2-3 things that I would like to highlight here. One, that yes, water insecurity is a complex challenge, and there are so many different aspects of it that we are trying to make sense of, trying to address through the different projects, different initiatives that we are taking. But at the same time, and this is something that's come on again and again, not just in the morning, not just yesterday, but even today, even in the last session, that the research to policy linkages are not linear. They need to be addressed intersectionally. They need to be addressed. They are longer term in nature, and your cycles may not be the same, and we still need to engage with our policymakers. A lot of us are doing that through the work that we are taking forward. I mean, the whole idea of the boundary partners that was very rightly pointed out is a very unique thing to this region. Coming from South Asia also, I can say that this is not as it is in this region in Southeast Asia. And I think that's a point that we can take on, where policymakers at certain levels are still engaging with us, and we are having those conversations. But to even have those conversations, it's important to also talk about how do we communicate that research. And it's not in those papers, but it's in the ways we are communicating. What stories are we saying? How are we making them interested in the human story, in the human nature story, so to say, because we are closely linked together, and that's important to take forward as we are going ahead. I think I'll leave us with those last key messages, and I'll invite Dr. Chinese to give the closing remarks for this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chashmita, and also it is really, how to say, I'm so touched because we can see here that 2-3 days is very long, and we still have maybe half of the room here together with us. It's really a privilege to have you here, and not only colleagues in person here, but I know that several members still join us online, starting from even before 9, and now it's almost 5 p.m. It's already 8 hours, like 9 hours screen time that you are being with us. And that's really enormous energies and also effort everyone putting into this. So what I want to say that it's actually important that we really need to appreciate ourselves here for your participations. Because what you are now contributing here is not only like individual learning, but actually when we go back home, we have this learning to be shared with our colleagues. And from our side, SUMERNET and MTT, what you really contributed here is really giving some clearer direction for us to think and look back ourselves, how we can do better job in terms of reflecting whatever the recommendation you made for our remaining period of the program of the SUMERNET for All, and also the Mekong Thought Leadership and Think Tank Network in current phase that will run until this year and also next year. So, but most importantly, is also a lot of recommendation here. We think it's very useful for us when it comes to thinking about more long term. Because when it comes to the network and the alliance, we are not really looking at what one project or two projects will contribute, but it's more kind of lifetime contribution, lifetime learning for us. Every time I join the events like this, apart from learning about the subjects, technical things, I really learn about the life of colleagues participating in this. Sometimes they talk about their family and talk about their work, and that's really contributing to what every one of us here like being here today. We are really, how to say it, be always better version of ourselves by learning from others and reflecting what we can absorb, and also we can reflect internally and be performing whatever the task we do, either in our work or in our family. So internally in ourselves here, because of really generous support from our partners here. And when it comes to what the SUMERNET and MTT remaining period can do, I'm so pleased to announce, because with the additional support from the Australian government, we have heard a lot about the importance of the communications. And we see that even the researchers trying to do a lot of better communication as compared to the past year and also past 2 years. We still see that it's not enough. So what is the best mechanism for us to learn? I heard Kun Dwight mention that, okay, we can do theater, we can do singing, or maybe we can do dancing. But that is not our profession, you know. I sometimes ask my son, can you teach me dancing? And he looked at me, are you sure that you want to learn about this? And I will say, yeah, I want to learn about this, but it will probably take me so many years until I can be really professional. That's why we feel that instead of researcher, ask the researcher to be really hybrid or superstar, can do everything. You have to do paper, you have to write blog, you have to do really the film, you have to dance, you have to engage with policy, you have to do better communication. Are you thinking yourself already what you have to perform as a father and mother at home? Let us find some more friends who can help us. That's why under the MTT, Mekong Leadership and Think Tank Network, probably by end of June, we will launch the call and invitation for any journalists or young media journalists that would like to cooperate with us. We're learning a lot of good results for media research partnership from SUMERNET. And with that additional support from Australian government, we will invite more young journalists to join us, also media research partnership, to contribute to Mekong Thought Leadership and Think Tank Network flagship, and also rapid response studies and also projects. Yesterday, we received a lot of useful comments that our team leaders presenting 2 minutes speed talk. And many comments feeding back to us that, oh, there's a lot of information, but there's still so much question what they're trying to do. What are the impact they try to really achieve? We think that by working together with the young journalists and also those who really have the profession on better communication in the public will probably enhance the visibilities of this really great work that all researchers and practitioners will put in the remaining part of the year. So this is something I think we can commit at this stage that we can do. There are so many recommendations, particularly we got so excited opportunity. The Mekong River Commission also actually made special requests. If SEI and SUMERNET, for example, could help really facilitating or carry out kind of in the future community research, because there's really a clear need on this, how and who will be the best facilitators, that ensuring that the research with the community is really rigorous when it comes to methodologies, and at the same time transparent and accountable to whatever the question we try to respond. This one is something that we think is very important, but we also need to make sure that we have the resources to do that. We have very good will, and whenever we talk with the partner, everyone say, yes, we must do it. We need to seek additional fund for this. That's why I would say we cannot commit and promise now, but this is something that we will take on and consider this seriously in the future design of SUMERNET Plus that we are talking about. And in many occasions, we're reflecting ourselves here, how we perform as a network and organizations within the project, within the flagship, within the collaborative fund, and many. And we got a lot of suggestions from the steering committee say that SUMERNET actually next year will turn into 20. 20 years for the person is really so beautiful and handsome. We actually learned a lot already what we have done in the past. We want to use this opportunity to reflect what are actually considered as our really good practice. And also, Ajahn Chantana gave a very big assignment for us to think about what really prototype and innovation the SUMERNET put to the world after 20 years of contributions. Contribution from CEDA, contribution to many donors, and the biggest contribution is intellectual and all effort and passions of more than 600 or 700 network members. What we put in here is not to really try to help really for individual projects to achieve the maximum potential of the impacts that we do, not only scientifically or society, policy, but many others. How many actually have raised or rise really enthusiasm of young professionals? How many of these actually contributed to better livelihood of people on ground? So we hope that the SUMERNET Plus will give us opportunity to have better reflections and also better support to whatever the effort that contributed in the past 20 years that already put in place. What is the next step for us to really reflect ourselves and put more probably additional support and use, probably I would like to say, personally would like to invite our key champion who have successfully delivered a lot of good impact from your project. You are here and we are here as a family. We would like to invite, for example, Ajahn Yanyong team, Oulavanh team, or Dr. K. Pinella and many other teams who have successfully engaged to actually help the other team. So there will be some thinking about the mechanism, how we can help, the partner, the network member help each other to achieve the maximum potential of whatever project could achieve. So this is something that we internally can discuss further, but I, as a program director, would be very keen to consult this with our steering committee, that this is the idea that we will be able to discuss moving forward. And finally, I don't want to say very long. I can keep really say for an hour. Sorry about that. It's very difficult for me to wrap up, but I want to say the three messages that I receive from here in terms of really big contribution is our work in terms of enhancing the policy using the evidence is really critical. And I see in every session I attended still highlighting the important and highly relevance of the work, the SUMERNET-MTT, that we should continue. The second is the collaboration is very important. The collaboration in here is not only those who really have the common value like us. The collaboration here is mean going beyond our comfort zone, talk with people with different opinions and even oppositions of us, because by doing this, we understand their perspective. So we have to really extend and challenge ourselves to talk with those people who think differently from us. And this is something that I think we should really take it seriously, and I will take it seriously as well. The third point is very important, and I think most important is, so we should make sure whenever we discuss and we work, we always think about people behind whatever the decision, whatever we give the dialogue. The communities, people who will be suffering and who will be benefiting to the decision should be our always thinking and key factor for us in considering any activity we do in the future. So these are three things that I feel that we can keep and we can make sure that in the future we're reflecting ourselves in any design or any work that we do in the future. And lastly, I want to say big thanks. Now I have the list in my note here. Hopefully I don't miss anyone. I want to really say big thanks to everyone contributing to this. Particularly, we have the speakers. I know speakers, some of them traveling very far away, more than 1,000 miles to be here. Some speakers really it's so difficult to explain because of the physical difficulties, but they are here with us. Some speakers have to do this online, some speakers on site, but a lot of preparation overnight that you have to make. So thank you so much for that. And by having here and your work here is actually reflecting the community that you really engage. So because many people give you the data and give us the data, that's why we can present here. So I would like to extend my really appreciation or kind of community villager and policymaker, the NTU and everyone to make these learnings possible. And of course, without the great support from our supporters, the Australian government and Swedish government would not make this possible. So I would like to really big thanks for that. And we also have all kind of resource persons supporting this in different really positions and also different activity is really gratefully acknowledged. And all participants here, also your contribution are very important. I see really a lot of work behind us by SUMERNET Young Professional Fellows and MTT Fellow. You got really a lot of help to us, do a translation and many other things. So this really make us, the work is really beautifully concluded because we want to make sure that everyone have the role in this. This is really the forum of everyone. And we have here ourselves here, my team from Secretariat team and also a big team from SCIs, not only those who work in the program, but also the work that we actually do from our office operation and finance team. This is only make it possible because everyone working and contributing to this. And the last two groups, I want to say big thanks is to yourselves and also your family that allow you to be here with us. That's only possible because you get a visa out of your family and your kids, your parents, your boss, your colleague allow you to be here. So I want to say big thanks to everyone, and hopefully this learning forum is worth for everyone, and if hopefully you get something back home and tell other people that it's very nice to join here, and we continue to make sure that we connect after this. So with that, thank you so much, everyone. I hope everyone will have a good journey. Okay, so Agus reminded me that we actually should really make sure that we fulfill our commitment. So here is really the word cloud that everyone contributed. I think the biggest one is here. We talk about collaboration, networking, policy engagement, knowledge, and solution. I think most of this actually we cover, but of course how we, after discussion, we should not end here. It's really depend on how when you go back home and you take on for implement and make it in reality. And I think we have everyone here commitment and contribution to this. Next, please. And the next one is just to remind ourselves about our objectives. So our objectives here of the events written 4 objectives. Yeah. So, okay, so don't worry. So it's actually just reflecting here. We say we facilitate more learning, and I believe that we have achieved that. And then second, we identify usable knowledge. We already learned from the last panel that we discussed about this, and also really understand priorities of their policy and also challenge in the region. And at the end, we also learn about what we believe as effective kind of best practice and also effective policy and engagement strategy that we will want to learn from. So I would like to invite if anyone feel that we don't achieve anything, considering these objectives. Okay, so no one raised hands. So I think then we would say that everyone help achieving these 4 objectives. Can you clap to yourselves? Thank you so much. And if you don't mind, could you tap to your friends close to you that you're doing this good job? So thank you so much. And at the end, can you keep 2 hands for you and Hold yourself and tap to yourself. Thank you to yourselves. You have done well and khop kun ka. So with this, I declare the forum closed. And thank you so much for your time. And have a nice evening. And hopefully enjoy dinner or whatever the date you will have after this. I have the date already also, so. Very funny. Okay, some announcement.